Let her stand on the porch. We're at the table. My daughter-in-law Melanie's voice sliced the night through the cracked window like a blade. My own daughter-in-law had just condemned me to wait in the rain while they dined in warmth. I stood there 3 hours. 3 hours, soaked to the skin, while my family ate in a house I helped them keep. And that same night I made a decision that, the next day, left them speechless. My name is Maeve O'Hara. I'm 69. And it began on a Friday morning when I woke with a quiet flutter. After 3 months without seeing my grandson Tyler, my son Andrew had finally invited me to dinner. "Mom, come at 6. We've missed you," he said in that gentle tone that always melted my heart. I'd been a widow 5 years. All my life I cleaned houses, sold baked goods at farmers' markets, picked up overnight shifts at a laundromat, anything to raise my son. And now, even with his own family, I was still the one bailing them out. Payments on their SUV, the charter school top-up for Tyler, utilities, a missed mortgage draft, all siphoned off my pension and savings. I didn't care, they were my blood and my mourning reason. I prepared carefully. I chose a burgundy dress that makes me feel dignified despite my wrinkles, put on my mother's pearl earrings and spritzed those French perfumes I'd snagged on clearance. I stopped at the toy store off Main and bought a brand new Transformer robot Tyler had mentioned last time. For Melanie I picked up a box of cupcakes from the bakery on Elm Avenue, the lemon glaze ones she'd raved about. The bags tugged at my arms, but my heart was light. I caught the Route 27 cross down, the same as always. 45 minutes past billboards and gas stations, imagining Tyler's eyes when he'd see the gift. October was clear, the wind like the days when Andrew was little and we fed the ducks. I arrived in their quiet cul-de-sac in Lakeview Estates, a neighborhood I was proud of, knowing that without my co-sign they'd never have moved there. I walked 4 blocks from the stop to their 2-story house with the tiny flag by the porch, a house with my name on the mortgage papers. I rang at exactly 6 o'clock, and my cold shower began, literally. Melanie opened with a taut smile. She wore the elegant black dress, the one I'd given her last month for her birthday. "Good evening, Maeve," she said, without stepping aside. "You're a bit untimely. We have guests." "But Andrew invited me for dinner," I said, confused, feeling the bags grow heavier. Yes, she nodded. "Wait on the porch a minute, I'll whisper to him." The door clicked shut right in front of me. I stayed on the steps, wondering how I'd just been put on pause. Voices, laughter, and the tinkle of glasses spilled from inside. It smelled like roast turkey and wine. And I was outside. 5 minutes. 10. 15. I rang again. This time Andrew, my son, my pride, the boy I skipped coats for and took extra shifts for, appeared. "Mom, you're still here," he smiled, flustered. "Son, you said 6. I'm here. The cupcakes will go cold. And the toy for Tyler." He glanced over his shoulder at the gleam of stemware. "Mom, Melanie's PDA friends dropped by, and the food might not stretch. Can we move it to tomorrow?" As if someone had slapped me. I'd spent my last dollars on gifts, taken 2 buses, prepared with love. "But honey, you invited me. I miss Tyler so much." "I know, Mom, it's just not convenient right now," he whispered. Behind him Melanie reappeared with a glass of Pinot Noir. "Maeve, it's just a mix-up," she said, voice flat as a shopping list. "Let's coordinate another day, when we can give you the full attention you deserve." As if I were a project to complete, an expense to postpone. Just then Tyler's voice floated from deeper in the house. "Dad, who is it?" "Just Grandma's here, buddy." "Keep eating," Andrew called back. "Just Grandma." "All right," I whispered. "I'll go." But my legs wouldn't move. Where would I go? The buses were scarce at that hour. A mist began dotting my freshly set hair. In minutes it grew into real rain, and my carefully chosen burgundy dress stuck to my knees. I pressed under the tiny awning, back to the door like it was a foreign wall. The conversation continued, toasts, a kitchen speaker playing music. "Who was it, honey?" asked a woman I didn't know. "Andrew's mom," Melanie said, annoyed. She showed up unannounced. Though he'd invited me yesterday. "Oh, Andy," someone giggled, "she stresses me out when she comes. She always finds something to nitpick. The house, your parenting." My heart was tired of hurting. What had I nitpicked? I always came with praise. "Pies, you're doing great. And you know," Melanie went on, "how she gets after a glass of wine." Tense, emotional. They hadn't offered me even a glass of water. The rain hammered harder. I stood like a wet statue, listening as people on the other side rewrote my role in my own family. "What if she gets cold?" Andrew murmured. "Don't dramatize," Melanie cut him off. "She's probably gone already. Your mother's tougher than she looks." But I didn't go. I couldn't. As if my feet had rooted to the marble porch into which I'd put down the extra payment the day the bank balked at Andrew's loan. Half an hour. An hour. Water seeped into my shoes, my socks clung, the dress stuck to my creased skin. I shook with cold, but something in me refused to move. I rang yet again. Silence. At last the door opened, and there stood Andrew with the same expression of an irritated boy I used to drag off the soccer field when someone had taunted him after a loss. "Mom, you're still here? You'll get sick." "Son, just let me come in to dry off. I'll sit in the hall, I won't disturb anyone, I swear." "Look, Mom, the guests would be uncomfortable." "Nothing personal." "Nothing personal?" I snapped. "I am your mother, Andrew. I carried you 9 months. I scrubbed floors at night to put you through college. I'm still keeping this house on autopay." His face hardened. "Exactly. And that's why Melanie doesn't want you coming by so often. You turn everything into drama." Is asking for a little respect drama? I just want to be with my family. Is that so much? "Close the door, you're letting the cold in," Melanie called from inside. And my son, my own son, obeyed. The door, once home to me, became a clean line of refusal. Rain and tears merged on my face. The bags were collapsing, wrapping paper slid off in sodden strips. I stepped over to the dining room window. Through the lace curtains, the ones I'd given them last Christmas, I could see a catalog scene: china, silver, crystal under the chandelier, middle-aged adults in their prime, chattering. Tyler sat on a booster seat, diligently prodding mac and cheese. My grandson, for whose charter school I paid, whose warm coats and light-up sneakers I bought. "Grandma loves you, Ty," I whispered, pressing my forehead to the fogged glass. He turned. Our eyes met for a second. He saw me, wet, clenched, hair gone wild, soggy bags at my feet. And he just turned back to his plate. He's 5. He does what he's taught, heeds those at the table. "See? She's still there," Melanie's voice scraped like a fork on china. "Right there by the window." "You're not going to let her in?" a friend asked. "Poor thing, she's drenched," someone cooed. "Absolutely not," Melanie said sweetly. "Let her wait if she wants. We're having dinner and I won't let our evening be spoiled." "But she's the boy's grandmother," someone tried a drop of humanity. "She's very difficult," Melanie sliced. "She always wants the spotlight. Let her in and it's a show, accusations, stories, sighs." "Maybe still," Andrew began faintly. "What, let her in so everyone's uncomfortable?" Melanie laughed, empty. "Your mother needs to learn she can't just show up whenever she likes." "But I invited her." "You invited her out of pity. And now the guests are asking what's going on." The child is confused. "Why can't Grandma come in?" Tyler raised his eyes. "Because grown-ups are talking about important things, sweetheart. Grandma will leave soon," Melanie replied. I didn't leave. I couldn't. Pain itself nailed me to that porch. Another half hour. Another hour. 2. 3. 180 minutes of my life washed away while my family ate on my money and in my silence. The rain baptized me in reverse. It washed off my makeup, wrecked my hair, and gripped my throat with a cold hand. Tyler's robot dissolved into pulp, the lemon cupcakes slumped into sticky pity in their elegant box. But that wasn't what hurt. What hurt was knowing that to my own family I was an inconvenience standing at the door. Footsteps in the hall. I lifted my head. Maybe Andrew, no. Melanie, with a glass of Pinot Noir, came to the window and pinched the curtain. She saw me, examined me like a shop display, and smiled. Not with compassion. With satisfaction. In her look was, I won. She's still there? A friend asked. Yes. Like an abandoned dog, Melanie tossed lightly. When she's tired, she'll go. Don't you feel sorry for her? Not at all. It's manipulation. Theater. Melanie, it's 9, Andrew's silhouette appeared. Mom's been out there 3 hours. She'll get sick. Then she should go. No one is keeping her here, Melanie shrugged. She has no way to get home. Buses are done. A taxi. Or walk. Not my problem. Walk 10 miles along a shoulderless road. A taxi for the last cash I had. Please, Andrew said softly. She's my mother. And precisely for that she must respect our boundaries, Melanie said coolly. Enough of her, reminding us every month that she pays. At that moment Tyler leaped up and ran to the window. Grandma. He pressed his palms to the glass. My heart bloomed and clenched again as Melanie took his hand. No, no. Grandma is playing the feel sorry for me game. Don't pay attention. But the rain, he tried. Sit down, sweetheart. When the dining room door closed again, I stopped shivering. The cold had reached bone and my body surrendered. I didn't. The next morning I woke with a sore throat and a hollow head, but with a clear schedule in my soul. I brewed tea, took my little ledger from the drawer, the one where I'd logged transfers, checks, the currency of my silence for years. And I called 3 places where they knew me by name. First, the credit union on Main. Ms. O'Hara, said the manager, are you certain? Absolutely. Cancel all autopays linked to Andrew O'Hara and Melanie O'Grady's accounts. Remove me as an authorized user from their cards. Today. Second, the auto lender. I'm a co-signer, not the owner, I said. From now on, no drafts from my account. Notify them directly. Third, the church bookkeeper, Mrs. Ramos, who sometimes helped with my taxes. I need 3 certified letters with return receipts, I dictated. 1. To Andrew and Melanie, cessation of financial support. 2. To the mortgage servicer, notice that I have not authorized any additional obligations and demand copies of all documents. 3. To the HOA board, I will no longer pay their fines or late dues. And 1 more, I added, swallowing the dryness in my throat. We're opening a small trust, the Lakeview Literacy Fund. The money that went every month to their expenses will, for the next 3 months, go to nightlights, books, and small grants for the kids in our neighborhood. Boundaries, translated into numbers. At noon I went to the bank. They offered me water and a blanket. I was still coughing. I signed with the same steady hand I'd used on my marriage license. I signed under my own dignity. At the post office a clerk fixed thick green USPS certified mail stickers to my envelopes. I held them in my palms like little verdicts, not for them, no. Verdicts for our old rules. In the afternoon I called the principal of Tyler's charter school. Ms. Collier, this is Maeve O'Hara. I've covered my grandson's tuition for years. From now on those funds will go through a transparent account. And one more thing. If Tyler ever comes without a warm coat or lunch, call me directly. I will not abandon a child, even if the adults left me on the porch. Then I wrote 2 letters. The first, brief, formal, for my son and his wife. Andrew, Melanie. Effective today, I am ending all monthly transfers, autopays, and the paying of fines. What I did out of love will no longer be treated as your default budget. You are adults. Make adult decisions. If you want to talk, coffee at Maple Diner tomorrow at 8 a.m. No guests. No wine. With respect, Maeve. The second, meant to be read aloud, to Tyler. Dear Ty, it was cold yesterday. But Grandma now has a warm plan. Saturday at 10 a.m. at the Elm Avenue Library, our Dinosaur Reading Club begins. I have a glow-in-the-dark book for you and the same robot, dry this time. I am always here for you. Always. Grandma. I sealed the letter and delivered it myself to the school office with a note for his teacher. Let the child hear my voice when others try to drown it out. In the evening, my apartment's doorbell tore the quiet. Andrew stood there without a jacket, Melanie in a belted coat like armor. Both wore the look of people who just heard from a bank. Mom, he began. We got some letters. You can't be serious. I am, I said. Maple Diner. Tomorrow. 8 o'clock. I'm resting today. Can we come in? Explain. No. Not today. Rules have doors and office hours, too. They hovered a moment and nodded, lost. I closed the door softly, like a book read to its period. Maple Diner smelled of coffee and syrup. I came early, laid my ledger and envelope of copies on the table. They were 7 minutes late, the habit of people who assume they'll be waited on. Mom, Andrew sat, hugging a mug. Yesterday was ugly. Yesterday showed things as they are, I said quietly. So let's speak as they are. I opened the ledger. Here are 24 months of transfers. Mortgage. Utilities. Car. School. Here are the HOA fines I paid. Here are the $5,000 months of till payday. This is not an accusation. It's the story of our family in numbers. From today the story changes. You want us to lose the house? Melanie snapped. I want you to carry your house yourselves. Like adults. You both earn enough. But that requires a budget, counseling, you both have plenty to say, and a monthly contribution to the Lakeview Literacy Fund, even if it's just $50. Money without giving back is like an empty plate after a parade. This is blackmail, Melanie whispered. No. It's boundaries. I will keep them even if you hate me. Andrew looked down. We're used to you always being there. Unconditionally. I'm still here, I softened. For Tyler, always. For you, when there's respect and notice. If you want me to come, you invite me and let me in. If you want help, you ask early and clearly. No more standing at doors. Melanie looked at Andrew, then at me. And if we can't manage? Then sell the car, trim the packages, move Tyler to a public school. Families live that way too. I lived that way half my life and didn't lose my face. We sat in silence. Outside, a truck unloaded crates of oranges. Someone laughed at the counter. Life, unaware of our dramas, flowed on. Mom, Andrew said at last. I'm sorry. For last night. Apologies aren't a ticket back, I said. They're a key to a door behind which there's work. It starts today. Go home and tell Tyler that on Saturdays at 10 he's with Grandma at the library. If Melanie objects, she can say it to my face, in the children's room, between the shelves. Melanie sighed and turned to the window. I don't object to the library, she muttered. I object to you making us feel guilty. Actions make people guilty, I said. I just stopped covering them. We parted without hugs. I stepped into the cold morning, inhaled, and for the first time in years the air didn't smell like debt. On Saturday Tyler stood by the library door on Elm Avenue, clutching his new jacket. His eyes shone so brightly I felt warm without tea. Grandma. He ran up and pressed his forehead to my chest. Are you real? More real than any rain, I smiled. Let's pick a book about dinosaurs. And guess what? I brought you a dry robot. We sat in the children's room. Parents with toddlers, students with laptops, elders with newspapers, a life that remembers the rules of quiet. I opened the book and we read. On the word Stegosaurus, I felt a shadow. I looked up. Andrew stood at the doorway. Without Melanie. Hands in pockets. Eyes on us. May I join? He asked softly. There's room, I said, tapping the chair. He sat. We read, the three of us. When we finished the chapter, I felt that somewhere in Lakeview Estates, a chandelier still shone, crystals still chimed, the HOA still sent fines, and Maple Diner still smelled of coffee. America lives the way it knows how. But now I had my own little state papers, green return receipts, fund slips, a library schedule, and they meant more than any apology. Because in this country the main thing isn't the rain on the porch. It's your signature under your own rules. And a door that opens only when people come to it with respect. Mom, are you leaving? Do you need money for a taxi? Ben peered from behind Caroline's shoulder, eyes lowered in guilt. No, thank you, I said evenly. I've already taken care of everything. There's no need to make a scene, Caroline added, grudgingly holding the door. And, let's skip the passive-aggressive, okay? This isn't a scene, Caroline. It's the final act of the old play, I smiled faintly. And tomorrow your new one begins, without my money. She blinked, and for a moment I saw confusion in her eyes. What did "without" mean? But I carefully stepped down, lifted the soggy bags, and headed down the wet sidewalk. My phone buzzed, an email from the bank, freeze request completed. List of accounts attached. Case number 789456. I exhaled, not in relief, but in resolve. Rules, on. A car stopped at the corner. The wipers slid across the windshield. The door opened. Helen. Sharon, my neighbor, leaned across the passenger seat. Hop in. I was nearby and decided to swing past. You're soaked. I nodded and slipped in without a word. The heater roared warm. Steam rose from me like laundry. We drove, past their perfect cul-de-sac, the familiar maple, the sign, HOA welcomes you to Lakeview Estates. Sharon didn't pry. She just pulled an old throw from the glove box and draped it over my shoulders. Tell me when you want to, she said gently. Tea first. I've got cinnamon. Back home I hung the dress over a chair, set my wet shoes by the radiator, and switched on the patterned desk lamp I'd found at a garage sale. Warm light pooled on the table, where my ledger and clean envelopes waited. I opened the bank's email, a list of accounts, status, frozen. Next to it, autopays, mortgage, car, utilities, private school, 3 subscriptions I'd never heard of. I picked up a pen and wrote in the margin, tomorrow, post office, certified letters. Next, Leo's school, direct contact. Next, literacy fund. When the kettle whistled, I poured chamomile and set it beside the phone. A text from an unknown number, your card has been declined. Attempt 2118, Brigantine Foods. Then another, payment attempt, taxi. Declined. I took a sip. The rain outside tapped more gently. A night bus murmured past. You can't live without us, she'd said. Maybe not, I thought. But I can live with myself. I wrote 3 letters. First, to the mortgage holder, request for the full document package and an order to cease any changes without my written consent. Second, to the HOA board, I will no longer cover my son's family's fines. Direct all matters to the homeowners. Third, to the school, if Leo arrives without lunch or a coat, notify me. I will come. At the end, a short note to myself, Saturday 10 o'clock, library. Dinosaur Club. I slept deeply, dreamless. Maybe for the first time in months. Morning began with calls. First, a tentative, "Mom," from Ben at 7. "Hello. Last night, did you really freeze everything?" "Yes. Temporarily. So we can all finally see the numbers. But the mortgage drafts today." "You're adults, Ben. Call the bank, get it switched to your own payment info. If you need contacts, I'll send you who to speak with." "Caroline's at the store." "Her card," he sighed. "Declined. She can use her own. Or cash." Pause. "Is this punishment?" "No, son. Boundaries. I'll be at the Sunset Diner at 8. If you want, come. We'll talk calmly, ledger on the table. No guests. No wine. If I bring Leo?" "For Leo there's always a seat. But first, an adult talk." By 5 to 8 I'd taken a table by the window. Coffee smell, dishware clinking, cracked leather booths, simple. Simple doesn't mean poor, it means honest. At 10 past 8 Ben arrived. Alone. He sat across from me, elbows on the edge. "Last night, Caroline," he started and trailed off. "I know," I said. "I was on the porch for 3 hours. You were there, too." He nodded, eyes down. I opened the ledger. Columns of digits instead of scolding, dates instead of reproach. Here, Leo's school. Here, gas and electric. Here, bridge me till payday. Here, grass over 3 inches HOA fine paid in a rush. This isn't rocks thrown at your garden. It's our family's chronicle. Everything you should have been doing, I did. Quietly. Now, enough. And if we can't manage alone?" He whispered. "Then you cut packages, sell the second car, cut comforts. It's not the end of the world. It's the start of responsibility. Caroline says you're manipulating. Manipulation is turning off your lights and then offering a candle for thanks. I just turned off autopay. You flip the switch now." We paused while the waitress set down 2 coffees. Ben stared out at a woman walking a child to a yellow school bus. Last night when Leo, he inhaled sharply. I heard him ask, "Why can't Grandma come in?" And I kept quiet. "You were afraid. That happens. Fear isn't a sentence. It's a choice about what you do next." He nodded. "Okay. I'll call the bank. Anne. I'll come Saturday to the library. If you'll let me." "I'll be waiting," I said, sliding him an envelope of copies. "Everything you need for the switch. Start today, tomorrow you'll have access again. But it'll be your access." He lifted his eyes. "Thanks, Mom." I smiled. Not like a savior. Like someone who knows how to end a sentence with a period. At noon the principal called. "Ms. Miller? We received your letter. And your donation for the first graders' library. Thank you. Anne, off the record, what you're doing for Leo is right. We'll call you directly." "I'm on the line," I said. "Always." Then, the post office. I queued, sent the certified letters with return receipts. The clerk, a young man in a wool cap, nodded at the green slips. "Proof is a good thing," he grinned. "Especially when everyone says nothing happened." "Exactly," I tucked them into my ledger. Paper remembers. That evening an unknown number rang. Caroline's voice was cold as the ice in a glass. "So, the school. They said you paid for new books. Why are you interfering?" "I'm not interfering. I'm investing. In the neighborhood's kids. Including your son. You're doing it to look like a saint." "No. I'm doing it so Leo has a shelf he can reach. And so one day, when he reads aloud to someone, there isn't a voice in his head saying, "Nobody important." Silence. Then a clipped, "Do whatever you want," and she hung up. I set down the phone, brewed tea, and sat at the window. The rain returned for a minute and faded. Inside, something quieted and reformed. Saturday. Elm Avenue Library. I arrived 10 minutes early to set out, Dinosaur Club, stickers and letter, Stegosaurus, in big, funny letters the 6-year-olds liked. 3 little flashlights lay on the table, for reading in the dark. I'd bought them yesterday, small, battery-powered, but magical to kids. Grandma. A voice I'd know among thousands. Leo barreled toward me, jacket flapping, hat in hand. Ben a step behind. "Hello, my hero," I crouched to his level. "Ready for dinos?" "Yes." "And can you show me how to write the letter R after? I keep mixing it up." "Of course. We'll teach R, S, and T, and even L if you like." Ben lingered by the shelves. I nodded to him. We began to read. At plate-backed, Leo laughed so ringing that 2 moms turned and smiled. Warmth grew in my chest, and room, too. When we finished, Ben drew a breath. "Mom," he stopped, searching for words. "Last night, I showed Melanie the letters. Said I'm taking responsibility. She got furious. Then cried. Then said I have to choose a side. And you?" I said I choose my son. And the truth. And that you're not an ATM. Someone touched my shoulder gently. "Ms. Wilson, the librarian." "Excuse me, Ms. Miller," she whispered. "Your dinosaur club is booked a month out. And," she winked at Leo, "we have a boy who wants to be the helper. Dinosaurs don't walk without helpers." Leo straightened. "I can. I'll be Grandma's helper." "Of course," I told him. Ms. Wilson, moving off, added. "And we have a small family room for calm talks, if you ever need it, without spectators." I thanked her. Not for the room. For the fact that there's always someone in the world quietly handing you the right door. That day, toward evening, Sharon called. "I'll drop by with a pie. And, a letter for you came to my mailbox by mistake. Looks like the HOA asked why Ms. Miller stopped paying. I told them Ms. Miller now pays only for what she loves. They were surprised, said rules don't say that. Life does," I laughed. When we'd had cherry pie, the phone rang again. "Caroline." I inhaled and picked up. "Yes?" We got the payments switched. Her voice was drier, less ice, more fatigue. "The bank says drafts resume Monday. And, if Leo comes over tomorrow for an hour, I won't object. He'll be with me at 3. Bring gloves, it's windy in the park." "Fine." "Caroline?" "Yes." "No more, nobody important. It hurts children worse than divorce." A long quiet. Then, almost inaudible. "Okay." I hung up. For the first time, that word didn't feel like a defeat, it felt like an understanding. Not about love. About rules. Sunday. Riverside Park. Wind raced the paths and tossed yellow leaves. I sat on a bench in mittens and waited. I saw the familiar silhouette and stood. Leo ran first, Ben behind. Caroline stayed in the car, scrolling her phone, but occasionally looked up. "Grandma, look." Leo thrust out his palm. On it, a library sticker, Dino Helper. My pride, I tapped it. "Today we'll get hot chocolate and feed the gulls. Carefully, they're cheeky." "Like the HOA, Ben said gravely, and we both laughed. We headed for the river. I thought, in America there will always be rain, banks, green slips from the post office, chandeliers at dinners, and whispers that cut colder than weather. But there will also be libraries, neighbors with blankets, and diner waitresses who pour coffee like they're measuring out a chance. And children who read aloud so that someone finally listens. When we got back to the car, Caroline stepped out and came a little closer than she had the day before. She looked at Leo, then at me. "He told me about the glow-in-the-dark books," she said, hands in her pockets. "Thank you. They're for all the kids," I said. "But I'm glad they make your son happy." She nodded, and didn't add a single jab. That was enough. That evening I summed up the week in my ledger not with numbers but with words. I didn't evict anyone from my heart. I only evicted autopays from my boundaries. I didn't stop being a mother or a grandmother. I stopped being a bank. And if anyone tries to call me nobody important again, I have two responses: my signature and a door. The first is mine, the second is, too. I closed the ledger, set the kettle on, and smiled to myself. The rain didn't snarl at the windows anymore, it listened quietly. Like those who have read to a child out loud and understood, that's how people come home. Through letters, through rules, through a no, where for years there had been a please. And the next day at 10, the Dinosaur Club. I have a helper. And a whole stack of books that glow in the dark. Like boundaries finally drawn right. Like respect that works without autopay. Caroline slowly rose to her feet. Wet crescents from her knees stained the tile, and for a moment the entryway fell so still you could hear the neighbor's thermostat click through the wall. "Thank you," I said evenly. "Now sit." We moved to the kitchen table. Sharon set out napkins like a court clerk and put the kettle on. Ben couldn't find a place for his hands, pockets, table edge, back again. Caroline wiped her eyes with the back of her hand and, it seemed, for the first time wasn't scanning the room for the chandelier under which it was easy to play assigned roles. So, I began, opening my ledger. "We won't forget the figures. We'll name them. And we'll name the terms." "Terms?" she flinched. "Yes. Last night you made clear who I am in your coordinate system. Today I'll make clear who I am in mine. I don't negotiate." Sharon sat beside me, set her pen on her pad, and nodded. "Say it, Helen." I felt that lightness in me again, not emptiness, but space, as if someone had opened a window in a room unaired too long. First. Written apologies. Real ones, no, if I offended you. Each sentence tied to a specific act. A copy to me, a copy to Ben, a copy in your drawer so you can reread it the next time your hand reaches for a closed door, and the words, "Nobody important." Caroline pressed her lips but nodded. Second. Financial independence. In 30 days you move every draft, mortgage, car, utilities, school, to your own accounts. I will not remain a co-obligor. We'll go to the bank and a notary and take my name off anything that makes me responsible for your choices. If the bank asks why, I'll tell the truth. I'm taking other people's hands off my wallet. Ben swallowed. 30, we can do it, he said, as if convincing himself. Third. Debt acknowledgement. Here are the sums for the last 2 years. Not to the cent, I'm not a collector. But that the nothing big, you called it, has become a system. We'll sign a simple note, fixed monthly payments to my account, no interest. Not paying for love. Paying for what you called nothing big. How much? Caroline croaked. I named the sum. She went pale. Ben closed his eyes. It's doable, Sharon said, in a tone that sounded like she'd seen such kitchen numbers 100 times. You stretch it. Safe amount. You won't go broke. You'll just stop living on autopilot. Fourth, I went on. Words. Banned phrases, nobody important, theatrics, manipulation, leave her outside. We are not going back to the Stone Age. In your house we won't speak what should never be spoken near a child. All right, Ben exhaled. I can do that. Fifth. What I will do, even if you don't ask. I'm opening a 529 for Leo. Education. I'll fund it monthly. Not through you. Without your permission. His future will not depend on your moods. That's my business and my joy. Ben lifted his head. In his eyes flashed a clumsy, childlike gratitude I hadn't seen in years. 6th. Practicing respect. Not toward me. Toward the community. 2 Saturdays a month, library. Shelving, the preschooler's shelf, read aloud. Caroline, you said you don't have time. That isn't about time. It's about choosing. Choose. You want to humiliate me, she breathed. No. I want your hands to hold a book a stranger's child will read, I said calmly. So that the next time you're tempted to say, nobody important, you remember that child's eyes. She was silent a long moment. Then she nodded, brusque, businesslike, so no one would think something had changed inside. And 7th, last. We'll attend one family session with a mediator. Not therapy. A table talk with one rule, only the person holding the wooden spoon speaks. You'll listen without interrupting. And I will listen. Once. That will be our mile marker 0. Okay, Ben said, as if he'd already seen the spoon. I slid them clean sheets. Write the apologies now. Not for drama. To set the start. Caroline took the pen Sharon offered. She wrote, Helen, I'm sorry, and froze, as if inside she had to unpick a tight knot of, but, and, you know. Then the words came, messy, uneven, with a few mistakes, but hers. Ben wrote briefly, as always, to the point. Mom, I'm at fault. I saw and did nothing. I'll change that, without words. When they'd signed, the kettle sang. Sharon poured tea. And now, about the accounts, I said. I'll unfreeze one draft today, Leo's school. I'll pay directly. Everything else is on you. Today is your call to the bank, your forms, your new autopays. At 9 p.m. I'll check. If I see movement, I'll lift the freeze for 48 hours on the utilities so you won't be without light. But that isn't an eternal credit of trust. It's the bridge you'll cross yourselves. Thank you, Ben whispered. His hands shook a little, he slid them under the table. And one more thing, I added, looking straight at Caroline. Leo will not see me in your blown-out scenes. If you feel yourselves slipping, if you want to raise your voices, remember his eyes at that window. Remember? A woman stood there whom you called nobody important. And a child took that lesson. We won't give him that textbook. She turned away for a second, and for the first time I saw not the flawless hostess under the chandelier, but a tired young woman who had been playing a role all along. It didn't excuse. It explained. I understand, she said quietly. We parted without handshakes. No drama. They went down the stairs, Sharon shut the door and exhaled. Now that was a scene. No, I smiled. At last, not a scene. An agreement. An hour later the bank emailed, partial unfreeze, transaction, Westbridge Elementary tuition authorized. I paid, and texted the principal the confirmation. She replied with a book emoji and, Leo read aloud to the class today. Proud. At 2 Ben called. We're at the bank. Switching autopays. Notary at 10 tomorrow. Can you come? I can. And, he hesitated, may I come by with Leo tonight? Half an hour. So he sees Grandma isn't nobody. And to bring the written apologies. Come, I said. And don't forget gloves. It's windy in the park. They came on time. Leo held a sheet with a penguin, black oval with 2 orange feet. This is our day. I drew our like river, but it turned into a penguin, he reported gravely. Penguin is good, too, I said. Penguins always come home together. Even when it's cold. Ben laid the envelopes on the table. I read them, without anger, without satisfaction. A simple fact, written. At 9 I'll release your gas and electricity for 2 days, I added, but only if the bank's confirmation of your new details comes by 7. Already sent, Ben said. And, tomorrow we're both going to the library. Your shift. Early, to shelve. Good, I smiled. Bring your hands. Caroline stood as if in cold air that wasn't in the room. Then she lifted her eyes. I want to come, too. I'll help with the preschool shelf. Can you show me how you do those stickers? So. I can come sometimes even without you? I can, I said. Stickers are simple. The hardest part is remembering that we put more than books into those little hands. She nodded. The next day we did the bank and the UPS notary. The clerk, young, with lavender inked on her wrist, checked the papers and said, "Good thing, taking weights off your shoulders. Even when they aren't yours." "Especially when they aren't mine," I answered. That evening Leo and I walked to the park. He shuffled along the curb with tiny slippery steps, holding my hand. We stopped at the maple. He bumped his shoulder into my side. "Grandma, did you get cold when you stood in the rain that time?" "Very," I said honestly. "But sometimes, to warm up, you have to get wet first. So you know what temperature suits you." "Like tea," he guessed. "Like tea," I smiled. Saturday morning the library was busy. Ms. Wilson gave us gloves and markers. Ben hauled boxes and, for the first time in a long while, seemed to sweat from effort instead of shame. Caroline, unexpectedly deft, laid out picture prompts for the little ones. Cat, rocket, river. Leo winked at river, whispered penguin. I lettered in black, Dinosaur Club, 10 o'clock. The kids sat in a semicircle. Leo, with his helper sticker, proudly handed out the cave flashlights. Today, I said, we'll learn 3 things. First, how to roll an R. Second, how to listen when someone else is speaking. Third, what to do when someone makes a mistake. The third is the hardest. Because everyone does. 10 earnest pairs of eyes stared. 2 moms glanced at each other and smiled. Caroline looked at me as if that third point had been written for her. Perhaps it had. Afterward I noticed a familiar figure by the entrance. Sharon winked from the doorway, holding a paper cup. "Hot coffee, for people doing hot work," she said, handing it to Ben. He thanked her, awkward, but sincere. The 3 of us, Ben, Caroline, and I, sat in the quiet room. Ms. Wilson put a wooden spoon on the table. "Know the rules?" she asked. "The one with the spoon speaks. The others don't cut to the quick." I took it first. "I don't need you to be perfect. I need you to be honest. Here. And beyond these walls." I passed the spoon to Ben. He held it like a steering wheel that had finally found a road. "I've been signing on to silent consent," he said. "Yesterday I saw how easy it is to be the guy who just stays out of it. Never again. I'm taking on the bills, the talks, the boundaries. I'm an adult." The spoon went to Caroline. She stared at the table. "I'm good at making things look pretty," she said evenly. "Napkins, plates, menus, photos. I'm not good at stopping in time. I think that if it looks right outside, inside is right too. Yesterday that fell apart. I won't promise I won't slip. But I promise to catch myself earlier. Before nobody important. Before shut doors." She raised her eyes. "And I'll come next Saturday. Even if it's not convenient." "You will," I nodded. "Because this isn't about convenience." That evening I wrote in my ledger, utilities, 48 hours on. Autopays, activated. Cosigner status, removed. Apologies, received. Boundaries, alive. Not numbers, milestones. My phone pinged, the principal, Leo raised his hand to read today. He asked if Grandma could hear how strong my R is now. I replied with a book emoji and a small blue heart, the kind people leave under posts about libraries. I went to the window. It was dark outside, but the dark didn't frighten me. I had flashlights, the kind that glow in children's hands. And the wooden spoon, for when someone forgets how to listen. And a kettle, ready to warm those who have just been caught in the rain. Tomorrow will be an interesting day, I'd told myself in that taxi, blotting my wet hair with a napkin. It turned out not just interesting. It was mine. And honest. And if it rains again, I have a coat. And keys to the place where I am seen. And, most important, boundaries that will never again stand outside someone else's door. They'll stand where they belong, around my heart. And behind them, those who truly matter. That same week City Hall called. Someone in social services had passed a reporter's piece onto the desk of the counselor for seniors. They invited me to speak at hearings on the Dignity First program, a small city fund for emergency legal aid and financial counseling for elders whose family puts them on autopay. Ms. Miller, said Counselor Ms. Granger, tall and brisk, hair in a tight bun, we need more than numbers. We need a human voice. One that cuts through, but it's family. I'll come, I said. And I'll bring my wooden spoon. She didn't get it, smiled politely. I knew, sometimes, to make people hush and listen, you just put a small symbol of rules on the table. At the hearing I spoke plainly. They didn't take my money. They took my right to say no. I took it back in the rain, when I understood I was standing not at a house door but at the door to my own boundaries. If we want our mothers and grandmothers not to stand under someone's window, we need tools. Bank flags on suspicious autopays. Lawyers who speak plain language. And a place that tells them, you are not alone. Afterward a gray-haired man in a cheap blazer came up. I'm Richard, a public defender. We lose cases because people are ashamed. How do you manage not to be ashamed? Shame is when you hide someone else's sin in your closet, I said. I put it out on the balcony. Let it air. Time passed. The Phoenix group, WhatsApp swelled to 100 people. Every Saturday we met in the library room, me, Sharon, MS. Wilson, and dozens of women with similar yet singular stories. We built a starter kit, bank letter templates, hotline lists, a short guide to how to talk to adult children when they become financial vampires. Someone coined soft guardianship, when instead of overt abuse they simply switch off your right to choose in the name of care. We wrote a simple tip sheet, how to tell help from control. Men wrote to me, widowers, uncles, former servicemen. MS. Miller, the letters said, I thought this was a women's issue, until my son-in-law asked me to sign some papers to help their mortgage. You saved me from foolishness. I replied, not me. Your inner door. Leo grew up. We trimmed the shrubs together, bought his first team sneakers, wrestled with algebra. I got used to his new R's, sharper, surer. In 8th grade his coach said he had a playmaker's eye, he could see the field 2 moves ahead. How do you learn to see like that? I asked. You taught me, he said. Remember you said, rain isn't always just rain. Sometimes it's a test of who takes your coat off you. I look and think, who wants me when it's wet? Warmth spread in me. From the sentence, and from the fact he remembered. In November, for the first time in years, we did Thanksgiving not at theirs, but at mine. A small table, a store-bought turkey, but the gravy, mine, the one I used to make when Ben was a student home for the weekend. Ben brought fresh bread, Sharon, pumpkin pie. Leo made cardboard, feathers of thanks, each with a word. Mine said voice. Ben's, second chance. Sharon's, side by side. On himself Leo stuck, team. Who do we thank, he asked. Ourselves, for decisiveness. And each other, for honesty, I said. And God, for the rain. Turns out, he can heal with it. We ate, then Leo set 3 little lanterns on the sill, the library kind. To remember, when it's dark, we light ourselves, he said. I knew I'd run into Caroline eventually. The neighborhood is small. She did remarry. I'd seen a photo on a friend of a friend's Facebook, simple white dress, daisies in her hands. A rounded belly, baby on the way. I didn't linger in other people's feeds, just noted, life moves. One day she found me. I was walking home with groceries when there she was at the corner, pushing a stroller. She stopped a few steps away, as if afraid to come closer but unwilling to pass by. Helen, she said softly. I won't cross your boundaries. May I just introduce you? This is Lily. I leaned in. The baby slept, mouth slightly open, hand clutching the blanket's edge. She's beautiful, I said. She screams at night, Caroline smiled, human for once. And I stand over her and think, how many times did you scream inside while you cleaned other people's houses? I'm not asking forgiveness. I haven't earned it. I just wanted to say, you were right. About money. About love. About boundaries. I nodded. Now you know by touch what rain is, I said. Best teacher there is. She didn't answer. She looked at Lily, then at me. I told Ben that if he's happy, I'm glad. And that Leo has a grandmother who can teach the main things. I won't take that from him. It's the only adult decision I've made in years. It's a good one, I said calmly. Take care of your child. We parted, no handshake, no fresh start. Life teaches, sometimes the best advice is not to get in the way of someone fixing things far from you. In spring the bank wrote, the Family Risk Flag program we'd pushed with Counselor Granger had launched as a pilot. If a senior's card pays more than 2 non-utility subscriptions for 3 months, the bank calls and asks, is this really you? I thought how simple, and how revolutionary. Small rails, big cars. Granger called me. This is your doing. It's our work, I said. Mine, yours, and that rains. Leo's school invited him to a tournament in Syracuse. Bus ride, cheap motel, pizza, the youth trip standard. I went as a volunteer, carried gear, stuck band-aids on skinned knees, held ice packs on shins. The coach made me Team Grandma. I laughed, better, Team Spoon. At night, with the boys asleep, the coach sat on the hallway floor with me, backs against the wall. My dad kept boundaries in his hands too, he said. Only his were a belt. I mixed up boundary with abuse for a long time. Thanks for giving the word back its good meaning. A boundary isn't a wall. It's a door with the handle on the inside, I said. You choose when to open. And to whom. He nodded and went quiet as the kids in the rooms. Ben changed beyond recognition. He loved his work, came to me not for easy money, but for soup and conversation. Sundays we wandered farmers' markets, picked apples for pie. He started asking me things he hadn't since he was 20. What were you afraid of when you were left alone? Of becoming invisible, I said. Then I realized, I wasn't unseen because I was alone, but because I was voiceless. As soon as I spoke, even in the grocery line, people began to see. I see you, Mom, he said. And didn't feel awkward as he would have 5 years earlier. In summer we were invited to the state capitol for a roundtable. I fear big rooms, but told myself, it's the same kitchen table, just bigger. We met bankers, judges, shelter directors. I talked about simple indicators. If a senior suddenly most often pays a manicure salon where the daughter-in-law goes, it might not be their choice. If a mom's phone has a new son number that calls only to ask for transfers, that's not a son. A short, wry judge said. Ms. Miller, we need you as an expert. You have a gift for turning morals into checklists. A moral without a checklist is often just bragging, I answered. A checklist without a moral is cold stone. We need both. One evening Leo came home with a split lip and scraped knee. A fight? I asked calmly, dabbing with baking soda. No. I stood up for a girl in our class. Some cool boys called her poor. I told them that kind of talk is trash. One shoved me. I fell. But it didn't go further. I pressed a napkin to his lip. I don't encourage fights. But thank you for not letting silence stand where you were. I remembered you in the rain, he shrugged. Thought how you wouldn't have kept quiet. I smiled sharp, the way you do when your throat's tight but you have to speak firmly. Good that it stopped at words. Remember, strength isn't in a fist, but in a back that straightens when you say no. Later I landed in the hospital. Nothing fatal, but my heart decided to remind us how long it's worked without weekends. Sharon drove me to ER, Ben rushed in, rumpled but steady. At night, under the monitor, I thought, if this is the end? I wasn't afraid. I was clear, I'd lived 2 halves, before rain and after. If I didn't wake tomorrow, I'd still be leaving with my inner doors open. In the morning a young doctor made me laugh. Pulse like a marathoner's. Anyone watching your diet? I am. And a wooden spoon, I said. We don't issue those, he joked. But we could add them to the protocol. We laughed. And I felt alive. On the 5th anniversary of that night, the library hosted a small exhibit, The Rain That Taught. 10 simple posters on the wall, you can love and not pay. Cleaning doesn't humiliate, demanding does. Family isn't insurance against responsibility. Your no isn't a sin. People came in, took pictures, thanked us. Someone cried quietly in the corner. I touched a shoulder and said, flashlights are on the table. Take one. Ben and Leo brought a big glass jar and a sign, Lantern Fund, first consult with a lawyer for a grandma/grandpa. By evening we'd collected exactly the price of that transformer that once turned to mush in the rain. I looked at the sum and thought, the universe loves symmetry. The next winter Leo surprised me, he volunteered at the animal shelter. Why there? I asked. Because I remember when they compared you to an abandoned dog, he said. I don't want any dog, or grandmother, to hear that again. I went with him. It smelled of bleach and warmth, like basements with cats from my childhood. We walked the dogs, and I talked to them as if they understood human stories. They did, in their way, they licked your hand when your voice got rough. They sense it, the volunteer coordinator said. When someone nearby has chosen themselves. Chosen, and keeps choosing every day, I corrected. Then came Leo's first love, a girl from art class. Hair dyed blue, black nails, eyes full of laughter. He brought her to meet me, this is Jo. She has boundaries too. We had tea and cookies. Jo told us how she'd told her stepfather, no, when he said, girls don't need computers, they need napkins. I thought, the world isn't lost. It grows from a nose like that. Can I have my own wooden spoon? She asked when she left. You don't have to own one. The important part is holding it when you need to, I said, giving her a tiny one from a spice set. She laughed, fitting. Sharp talks, sharp spoon. Once the police called, Ms. Miller, we've got a case. 82-year-old signed her apartment over to her son, he put her suitcase on the stoop. We heard of you. Can you come? I took a cab. A small woman in a crushed wool coat, eyes like 2 raindrops that don't dry. I sat beside her and said. I stood at a door once, too. Then it was wet outside. Yours is wet inside. Come to the library. We have tea, a lawyer, and a sign that says, you matter. She trembled like a bird that's finally understood the hands holding it won't break it. What if my son, she whispered. Your son is an adult. You are, too. Everyone is responsible for their own roof, I said. And if a downpour comes, we'll hold the umbrella together. Ben met Mia, a colleague. A woman without glitter, with laughter that respects quiet. He brought her into our rhythm slowly, dinner, a walk, a Saturday market. I made my favorite mistake, too many plates on the table. Mia laughed. You know what my mother says? When you set too much, you're secretly afraid someone might go hungry. You're not afraid of that, Ms. Miller. It's full here from the doorway. I blushed like I hadn't in ages. That night, after they left, I told Ben. She isn't afraid of my boundaries. She loves them, he said. She says being with you is like being by a lighthouse. Light, without blinding. I don't swear oaths, but I thought, maybe my son has finally chosen someone he doesn't have to train to respect. At 76 I wrote a small book, not memoir, a kitchen manual, short stories, simple how-tos, jokes here and there. I called it Spoon, Lantern, and Rain. Sharon insisted we print 100 copies for the library and a local fair. I was embarrassed. Who will read this? They were gone in 2 days. A woman came up with a copy full of tabs. It's a manual, she said. My son-in-law is in IT. He says the best interfaces have 3 buttons, yes, no, later. You gave us those buttons for life. I laughed and jotted, Boundary Interface. A good lecture title. Leo was finishing high school. At graduation he took the stage, not for a medal, not for a trophy, but to give a brief speech as student of the community. He said, as a kid I thought rain always meant a bad day. My grandma taught me different. It can be a tool. Want to know who's truly with you? Watch who holds out your coat, and who closes the door. Thank the first and don't be afraid to leave the second to their own storm. The principal clapped my shoulder. I've never heard a community student like that. I wiped my eyes, discreetly, but I did. We got home late. Neighbors on our floor greeted us with applause. Someone tied a little wooden spoon keychain to my doorknob. From all of us, said Mrs. Rosa. So you never put it far away. When Leo left for college, not the most expensive, but his, with a scholarship for an essay on boundaries as an act of love, the apartment fell quiet. The silence scared me for exactly 3 days. On the 4th our Phoenix group opened a hot hour, every day from 5 to 6 in the library. Bring a question, we go together. Need to call a bank? We put it on speaker and sit with you while you learn to speak yourself. Need to go to your son and take back your keys? We go 2 by 2, sit at the kitchen, hold your hand while you say, from today, the keys are mine. The 3rd week a woman came in with the nickname Swallow. She'd been fed the lines, we're family, you love us, don't dramatize. She cried, I'm afraid. A month later she brought a box of pastries and said, I took my keys back. We ate and wrote in our notebook, one more person dried her rain. Sometimes sadness swept over me, not for money or things, but for little Ben in his plaid pajamas who used to run into the kitchen and say, Mom, are we feeding the pigeons today? That boy grew hard and softened again. I'd stand at the window and stir my tea, once, twice, 3 times, the way I used to when he was little. Nostalgia is rain too, only warm. You don't have to fear it. You sip and say thanks. City Hall mounted a before and after photo exhibit. In one, me, from that night, soaked, snapped by Sharon, so you never forget. In another, me on a school stage with a mic, kids holding wooden spoons like trophies. Caption, Water remembers. So do we. People stopped and took pictures. I stood aside and thought, it would have sounded strange if someone had told me I'd become a public grandma. But it happened. And I'm not ashamed. In the 7th year we did what I never dreamed, we opened a small center, Lanterns. A room with 2 tables, 2 half-time lawyers, 2 phones, and 3 kettles. On the wall, 10 rules, the same ones I once read to Caroline and Ben, rewritten in the positive, you have the right to. On day 1 I set a wooden spoon and a lantern on the sill, talismans, and said. When we started, there were 2 voices. Now, 100. Tomorrow, more. This isn't about me. It's about all of us who can say no without shouting and yes without servitude. Ben brought a box of paper. Sharon, cookies. Leo sent a postcard from college. You're my biggest support program. Love you. Then something closed a painful loop. A subpoena, witness in State vs. K. I recognized the initial. I sat in the back row. Caroline, dark suit, eyes full of fear and fatigue, not for herself, for a child in her arms. Her husband had cancer, there were benefit funds, the simple man turned out not simple, he'd misappropriated money, and she was hauled in as a co-signer. I thought, life teaches, but everyone has their own textbook. The judge gave her probation and assigned community service at our center, because you seem to turn worse into better, he said to me with a smile. She came next day, sat to sort forms. She didn't meet my eyes. I didn't force it. We worked side by side, silent. At lunch she said, "Thank you for not using this moment to beat me again." "I'm not competing," I said. "I'm living." She nodded. We went back to the forms. A month later she brought cookies. On the box she'd written, "For not opening your inner door when I was pounding with my fists." "It's not an apology," she said. "It's a fact." "All right," I said. When Leo came home from college for break, he asked me to go on a short hike, a small trail, Grandma, nothing scary. We walked, drank water, sat on rocks, watched light filter through leaves. He said, "Did you ever think what if you'd just gone home that time, without calling the bank?" "I'd be the same," I said. "But without the certainty. Certainty is seeing your back straight. You either straighten it once and keep it, or you walk your whole life as if the rain never ends." He gave me a hand on a steep stretch. "Your back is straight," he smiled. I wrote in my notebook, "Not all rains are lessons. But every lesson is like water, it either washes or drowns." And added, "We choose." In the 8th year I handed the coordinator role to a young woman from our group, Swallow. She was flying high now, teaching classes, speaking at conferences, knowing more codes and numbers than I did. I was a little tired, not of people, of the calendar. I wanted to sit on the balcony and listen to the city breathe. Sharon said, "You know when to pass the spoon." "I'm not passing it," I said. "I'm setting it on the table. Whoever needs it will take it." That summer Leo brought home another girl, not Jo, but Lena. Friends first, then a couple. Lena said, "It's the first time I've seen a boy say no to friends when they mocked me for my complicated boundaries." "He's from our school," I smiled. "There, it's in the homework." They walked, brought me melons and tea. I looked at them and thought, maybe we've broken the chain. Mom, silent, son, endures, daughter-in-law, destroys. Maybe now it will be different. Long ago, in the first years after my husband died, I feared nights. Now I love the dark, it leaves room for thoughts that are shy by day. I sat on the balcony with a blanket over my knees and thought, how many people said their first no today? I wanted to believe, many. One such night I wrote a letter to my before self. "Dear Helen," I wrote neatly. "I know you think you'll fall apart without them. But the truth is, without yourself you'll fall apart faster. Don't fear rain. Fear the walls in your head. You know you're stronger than you think. Hugs. You." Funny, but it helped. Even if you've already walked the path, such letters glue the ragged edges of memory. The 9th year brought a small miracle. Lanterns won a grant for a teen program, Boundaries for the Young. They asked me to give the first talk to 10th graders. "Why should you teach us this, ma'am?" someone grumbled in the back row. "Because if you don't learn at 15, at 30 you'll call me crying that your girlfriend/boyfriend/boss/relative took away your right to change," I said. "And I want you crying from laughter, not from despair." They laughed, genuinely. I showed them the wooden spoon. This is an ancient gadget. It doesn't connect to Wi-Fi, but it helps you connect to yourself. If you're holding it, you speak. If you're not, you listen. That's it. 3 buttons. Afterwards several came up for selfies. One boy said, "Tonight I'm telling my dad I'm not going into the family business. I want to study design. Can I borrow your spoon? For an hour." "Take it. Just bring it back," I said. He returned it, with a note, "Worked." In the 10th year a TV journalist came, wanted a short segment. I agreed on one condition: don't stage the rain, don't spray a hose. The rain was real, I said. They shot in the library, the center, my balcony. When it aired, I got hundreds of letters. One was special, from a woman in a small town in Iowa. "I don't have a center or a library," she wrote, "but I have a wooden spoon and me. Today I said my first no. Thank you." I put her letter in the box where I keep such things. On the lid I wrote, "Evidence of rain." Leo finished college and came back. Not trailing, but with a plan, public service, helping the city with digital services. We celebrated with pasta and cheap wine. "Are you happy?" I asked. "Yes," he said. "Because I know where I'm going. And I know what I stepped away from." "That's the main knowledge," I said. "We often underestimate the from. It's as important as the to." Sometimes I ran into people from Caroline's old chandelier circle. They looked away or nodded. I felt no anger. I was almost curious, had they ever had their own rain? If so, did they find the courage not to run for an umbrella but to say, "What is a signal, not a punishment?" One of them stopped me once. "You ruined our evening," she said, and then smiled. "Now I think you saved it. Not for us, for yourself." "Evening had plenty of chances to be better," I answered. "It didn't have a chance to teach us the way we wanted. We had to learn ourselves." People often asked, "Did you forgive?" I answered honestly. I stopped expecting to be understood by those who can't listen. That's my forgiveness, for myself. Did I forgive them? I'm not collecting a debt. I closed the account. Let them pay their own lessons. In the 11th year we did something small and practical. We handed out my money, my decisions, brochures at pharmacies. Pharmacists nodded, "Thanks." Folks tell us things they won't tell family. The network grows where you never thought to seed. I remembered when cards, banking terms, and lawyers scared me. Now they don't. They're just tools, like a spoon. It all depends on whose hands they're in. In autumn Ben surprised me, a trip to the ocean. I'd wanted to hear waves for so long, kept putting it off. We sat on the shore, feet in sand, wind tugging hair, gulls stealing chips. I said, "You know what amazes me? I don't regret the years before the rain. They're mine too. They were the road to this beach." "You were a hero of rain and dry land both," he said. "You just didn't know. Now you do." I didn't answer. Sometimes the best answer is a wave that rolls in and wipes the tracks, leaving space for new steps. One December evening, snow powdering the sill, the doorbell rang. Caroline and Lily. The girl about 6. She held a wooden spoon, child-sized, colored with markers. "We brought it for your tree," Lily said. "Mom says you collect them." Caroline smiled, unsure. "We were at your center today. I'm leading a group now for those leaving toxic ties," she said. Life turned. I didn't come to reconcile or to ask. I came to say thank you. For the lesson. Lily knows your story, in my words. She's not afraid of no now. Good, I said. That was the point. We hung the spoon on the tree, by the lantern. I gave them simple, not fancy, cookies. Lily laughed, crumbs sprinkling the rug. I noticed Caroline pick up a crumb and carry it to the kitchen, leaving no trace. I thought, maybe her rain stopped being a storm. And whenever I see someone on the street hand another a closed umbrella before the rain starts, I smile. Because I know, boundaries aren't about pushing away. They're about the right distance where it's warm. Like a stove, too close, burns, too far, freezes. Beside it, you're warm and you brew your tea. 15 years have passed. I'm writing these lines from the same balcony where I once wrote, one woman who says, enough can change. Today I add, not only herself, but city rules, neighbor habits, children's laughter, the paths of money, and the path of rain clouds. I'm 84. I don't feel old the way I once feared. My boundaries haven't weakened. They're like stair rails, you don't notice them when you're spry, but you miss them when you sway. Leo works in the city's digital services office, building a new module, personal finance for seniors. Ben is married to Mia, they come every Sunday with a pie. Sharon moved to Florida to be near her daughter, but we call weekly. Her voice is like morning coffee. My center runs daily without me. I drop in as a visitor, set cookies on the table, and pick up the spoon, just to hold it. In the corner is the evidence of rain box. When someone brings their first, I said no letter, we put it there. It's full. There's always room for one more. If someone asks, why did you do all this? I answer, so our city has fewer wet thresholds and more dry kitchens. And so when children hear, grandma, they think not wallet, but lighthouse. Because sometimes one woman who says, enough, can change not only her own home, but the weather outside the window. And if you're reading this, hesitating, here's my wooden spoon. Hold it. Say your word. Then step into a house where you are welcome. There will always be tea there, a lantern, and a place where rain becomes a lesson, not a sentence.